Okay, so here's what you're gonna need to make lentils in the crock pot. Let's take a look at what we have here. Paprika, pimenton. I prefer the spicy kind because I like my lentils to have a little zest to it, but you can also use the sweet, the dulce. We're gonna add a dash of black pepper, just a dash. Hueso de paleta. So if you've ever seen a Spanish ham, this is the smaller version, la paleta. But there's a part of it that isn't eaten. It's just a little end of the leg, of the pork leg, that is cured and is cut and sealed to be able to add flavor into dishes. Now mine at the moment is frozen because, well, I took one of them out and I didn't want this one to grow any mold, so I just put it in the freezer until the next time I need to use it. But this will add a nice meaty, porky flavor to the lentils. We're going to add just a little bit of olive oil, just a tad. From the other things I'm going to add, there'll be plenty of oil, but this is just a little to add, just a little something. Broth. This is a must. If you want to have flavorful lentils, I advise you don't use water, you use a broth. This one is a beef broth, which does just fine in lentils. The other one that can be used, that can be found here in Spain, is de cocido. That one also does quite fine too, but I advise either beef or cocido. I wouldn't mess with chicken on this one. We're going to add just a dash of wine, red wine. This is pretty trashy wine. As you see, it comes in a box, but I only use this wine to cook with. Obviously, you can use a better wine if you like, but this just adds a little nice flavor and gives it some good color. This is tocino. Basically, this is pork fat. This comes salted already with lots of salt on it. I'm just going to add one of these. Later, just like the hueso de paleta, when the soup is finished, I'm going to take it out. This is not going to stay in there. This is put in there just to give a little flavor, and it comes salted, so this is a good thing. I typically don't need to add any more salt to the lentils because this will add the salt that I need in it. As I said once before, once the lentils are cooked, we can pull this out and throw it away. Now, this is morcilla, or black pudding. This is basically a sausage that is made with rice and, well, pork blood. Sounds pretty disgusting, yeah, I know. Something I wouldn't have touched before I came to Spain. But what I do is if we quarter this up really well, this will disintegrate into your lentils and you won't even see it. But it gives a nice taste to it, a great flavor. Even the rice will disappear, you won't even see it. This is arguably the most important thing we have to have besides the lentils. A Spanish chorizo, a Spanish sausage. As you can see, I like the spicy kind, picante. We're gonna put this whole thing into the lentils. That'll be our meat. Now, I mentioned the tocino already adds a good amount of salt. But just in case, sometimes if I taste it and I say, it's still a little bland, needs a little more something, usually I go for garlic or, in this case, doble caldo, which is a bouillon. This is beef bouillon, has a great flavor and a little more salt if and when it's needed. Now, you might notice I have some frozen veggies here because I'm lazy. I always advise, if you want your soup to taste the best, go ahead and get the fresh ingredients. But I don't like standing for 45 minutes in the kitchen cutting things up. So this is red pepper and green pepper already pre-cut for me. Gonna need this. We've got the frozen carrots here. Once again, a time saver, just go ahead and throw them in. Onion. Cut onion. Same thing. Now you might wonder, well, I already saw an onion on the table. Why do you need a cut onion and a whole onion? This onion, just like the pork bone and the pork fat, I'm going to cut this, just cut the ends off, and I'm going to add this entire onion into the lentils whole. When I'm finished with it, I'm going to take this onion out. This is just to add more flavor to it. Garlic, as you can see, I've already used a bit of this clove. I take a few of these teeth, I take the film off of them, and I throw them in whole, just to add flavor. Typically the garlic will disintegrate, it'll become very soft, and many times you won't even see it in the lentils when it's all done. Now, to add even more flavor in every spoonful, I also have the chopped garlic. I use this too. So I'll use a generous amount of this, and maybe about four cloves of this one. Potatoes. I don't like my lentils with a lot of potato, but some people do. I'm going to throw probably about 3 potatoes in here. I also like my lentils a little more liquidy, but if I need them to thicken up, I'll go ahead and chop up some potato really small and put it in there, because in the crock pot, the really small potato pieces, they will disintegrate, that's hacer, in your lentils, and it'll thicken them up. Of course, we cannot forget the lentils. So you'll see in many recipes that they recommend that you soak the lentils for anywhere from 2 to 12 or 24 hours to give them time to soften up. These are fast lentils, lenteja rápida. I use these, I don't soak them at all. You can start cooking with these right away, and by the time they finish, they're really nice and soft, just the way you need them. I'm just one guy, I live alone, and for me, I normally will put in about half of this bag. So, got one that I've already opened before, about half a bag, exactly. And half a bag of lentils makes a pretty good portion. For me, it'll take me about a week to eat all of this. Sometimes I even save a little, I freeze it. Okay, so that's our half a bag of lentils. Now we're gonna go ahead and pour the broth in over it. As I said before, this broth doesn't have to, these lentils, they don't have to soak. But I like to go ahead and get them wet while I go ahead and cut up the rest of the ingredients. So we'll throw that in there. There's always one little thing I forget. We also need bay leaf, or laro here in Spain. Bay leaf, this is necessary. So for lentils, I normally throw one in. At this point, we'll go ahead and throw in the bay leaf, we'll throw in the tocino, and we'll throw in the pork bone. Just one. Alright. There we are. So you see it's got the bone there, and this is a little meat on it. This meat typically is not going to go anywhere, but it adds a great flavor to the lentils. Just rest that in there. For our tocino, we're just going to use one little block. Just one. Both of these would be way too much. Take this one here. You can see it's a fatty, just a lump of fat. What to do with the other one? I'm gonna freeze it. I'm gonna put it in a Ziploc bag and freeze it until the next time, and it'll be good to go. No problem. And yeah, so while we go ahead and cut up everything else, we'll just leave it like that for a moment. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and add the onion. As you see, we're gonna cut it and take all the skin off of it and just leave it like this. I'm not gonna cut it anymore because this is just gonna be used to soak and give off its flavor. And when it's all finished, I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna remove the bay leaf, I'm going to remove the paleta, the pork bone, and I'm going to remove the pork fat. All of that will come out of this when this dish is finished. But we'll just go ahead and plop it in there. And as you can see, well, I'm gonna need some more liquid because these lentils are gonna continue to drink up the broth. So when the time comes right, I'll add a little more of this. But we must also consider that for me, my vegetables that I'm gonna use are going to be frozen vegetables. So when I put them in there, they're gonna add even more liquid. So keeping this in mind, I'm not gonna add too much liquid too soon. Because those vegetables, I'm gonna add them at the end because I like mine to be a little more crisp. I don't want them to be completely like mashed potatoes when you bite into them. Okay, so this is our garlic, the whole garlic cloves. I keep these whole. I'm gonna add 5. You could add 4, 5, somewhere around there. And I just take them in and just chuck them in. That's it. Now, like I said, if they still remain whole and kind of hard, later on, if I can take them out easily, I'll pull them out. Normally, they just kind of disintegrate into the lentils later on. You let this cook for, I don't know, 5-6 hours, you won't really see them. Now, we can also add a healthy portion of garlic, the chopped garlic now. Now, we just threw cloves in there, but a staple of Spanish cooking is garlic, and I like a lot of garlic in my stuff, so I'm gonna add a good portion of this. There's a nice clump like this, I'll go ahead and throw all that in there. I just eyeball it. Got another nice one here. Okay, toss it. And maybe, another decent portion. Okay, no big clumps, so I'm just gonna pour a little more in there. And all right, we're good. Okay, so at this point, once I've got the basics in there, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it on now. Now, if I got a lot of time, I'll go ahead and set it on low, but it's pretty late. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up, and I'll just go ahead and set it to fast. The high temperature. And I normally will keep an eye on it with my phone. Start a timer so I know how long it's been in there. Okay, so here's where we're at. We've got the tocino, the pork fat. We've got the hueso de paleta, the pork leg, the pork bone. We've got the whole onion. We've got garlic cloves, whole garlic cloves. We've got minced garlic. We've got a bay leaf. We've got obviously the lentils, and we've got them in broth. So now that I've turned up the temperature on them, I'll go ahead and add just a little wine. Not a lot, just enough to give. There we go. All right, nice purple color. Later on, that will help us turn the color to a healthy brown. And I'm gonna add a little olive oil because it wouldn't be Spanish without olive oil. Okay, that's good. Okay, so at this point we can go ahead and throw our chorizo in. So I'm gonna open this up. I like a nice meaty one. So yeah, I'm gonna use the whole thing. Obviously, if you're not so much into that, you can always use less, This is just my recipe. It's just a guideline. Make it your own. All right. Perfect. Perfect. Now this is the cheap chorizo. This is the chorizo they sell in the store for, well, I think this cost me maybe €2, something like that. So in dollars, I don't know, $2.50, not even $3. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up. Now I like to cut this up, almost mince it up to small little bits so I get a little piece of chorizo in every spoonful. So let's take a look at how I do that. So the first thing I do is I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. We don't need this part. That's that. Now, bear with me because, I'm not really using kitchen supplies. I should. This knife ain't the best to do it, but hey, it's what I got. And to make it easier to cut, I'm gonna go ahead and cut at the elbow. All right. Sit one half of it aside. Now, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna cut it down so also to miss the elbow. Boom. Set that aside. Now we got a nice straight piece of it. I'm gonna cut it right down the middle. Yep, just like that. Pull it apart. So we got two separate pieces here. Brilliant. Now each one of these, we're gonna cut down the middle again. Okay. Give them a split. Cool. All right. And now we're gonna cut them into the little pieces. You're always free to use a much better chorizo. The better chorizo, the better this will come out tasting. But, you know, just for an average meal, this chorizo does just fine. You might have a harder time getting your hands on chorizo in the States or outside of Spain. Just one piece of advice. I like to use the cured chorizo. As you see, it's kind of dry. I prefer this for lentils. You can do this with the fresh chorizo. What happens with the fresh chorizo though is it will become undone inside of the soup. And you'll just, I don't know, I prefer to have it like this. To me, the cured form, it stays in its form. It doesn't disintegrate in the soup. Now, if you're in the States, you will find chorizo probably at your local Latino food store. Now, keep in mind, the Latino versions of chorizo are slightly different from what you find here in Spain. In my experience, they typically have less paprika or less pimenton, what gives it this red color. That might be okay for you. You might just need to add a little bit of extra paprika on its own. But if you can get your hands on the Spanish one, perfect. Okay, so here we've got our morcilla. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this in there. I don't like a lot of morcilla in the lentils. And the way that I'm gonna cut it up is in a way that it's not even gonna be visible really. It's just gonna give us flavor. I might just use maybe a quarter or just a little more than a quarter of this sausage. So I'll hold it right there. And let's say, yeah, that's a good amount. We'll cut it right here. Boom. As you can see, the rice and the fat, and what's the brown is basically what is the blood. So let's go ahead and cut this up and add her in there. Cut the butt off, just like that. And just some chunks. They're not too thick. Just like that, that's fine. Because this is going to be undone. So I'm gonna cut down the side just like that because we want to take this skin off of it. Don't need that there. That skin, you don't want to have that in your soup because it's not going to, got a bit of chorizo there. It's not going to go anywhere. Cut down the side, open it up, take the skin off of it. Then I'm just going to take it and cut it into 4. Just like that. And we put it in. Without the skin on it, this will completely disintegrate into the lentil soup. And then we have a little bit of morcilla in every bite. Okay, so this is where we're at. We've got our meats. We've got everything that we almost need. We don't have any potatoes or any veggies in here yet besides just the whole onion. That's because, as I said before, I like to keep my vegetables a little more crisp, and I don't want the potatoes to become mush. So I add those later on. So, as we can see, everything is sitting on top. Stir up here. Spread things out. All right, we're gonna add some more liquid. Okay, that's good for the moment. I'll leave it just like that. Later on, I can come back and add more liquid as necessary. Now, it's critical at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in our paprika, the pimentón. Add a generous portion. I like mine with a little bit of bite. So like I said, I use the spicy kind, but you can also use whatever you decide. I'm going to add just a little black pepper. I'm not going to add any salt at this point because with the pork bone, the pork fat, the salted pork fat, the broth, the chorizo, that should already be enough salt for now. I'm going to stir everything up, let the pimentón get through. And actually looking at it, I think I'm going to add even just a little more liquid. So some more broth. And for now, I'll go ahead and close the top on this. See the morcilla? You see? Breaking down little by little. And as you go through, you won't even be able to see it anymore.